Hey there, Unit 4, Lesson 2. You guys are going to love this. Everyone always loves scatter plots. Would you expect a lot of people to go to the beach when it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit? Or what about when it's 78 degrees? A scatter plot is a graph that shows the correlation or relationship between two sets of data. It is the graph of a collection of ordered pairs. The scatter plot below shows the relationship between the temperature and the number of visitors at the beach. So, what they're saying is on a particular day, when it was 82 degrees out, they had, let's say, 85 visitors. If I go over here, I say, oh, there was a day that was 92 degrees and they had 450 visitors. Each one of those points refers to a single day, the temperature and number of visitors on that day. Two variables that are related in some way are said to be correlated. Two sets of data have positive correlation if the x value blank, the y value blank. So what you'll notice here is as I pick higher x values, the y values are also getting higher as well. So it's a positive correlation if the x value increases, the y value increases. So if both things are increasing, like our temperatures increase, number of daily visitors increase. Two sets of data have a negative correlation if as the x value increases, so as I move to the right, the y value, watch what happens, as I move to the right, the y value is going down or decreases. Then we've got another option at the bottom. Two sets of data have no correlation if there is no relationship between the two sets of data. So it's just totally scattered. There's no pattern to it at all. That might be something like number of times you chewed a piece of gum compared to the number of pairs of shoes you own. They have nothing to do with each other. A scatter plot that produces a graph with a curve is said to have a curved pattern. That seems to be pretty straightforward. So you will also see there are some of those examples that I just said out loud on your copy of the notes. What type of correlation does the beach scatter plot show? So the beach scatter plot showed us a positive correlation because as the temperature increases, we are also finding that the number of visitors increases. Tell whether the two quantities have a positive correlation, negative correlation, or no correlation. So a student's study time and their test scores. Now, what we're looking for is a general statement, not really specific individual cases. So typically what happens as a student's study time increases, typically their test scores also increase. So if the study time, the input is increasing, the output, the test scores are increasing as well, that would be a positive correlation. The age and value of a family car. So as the age of the car increases, as the car gets older, right? My car is only about 2.5, 3 years old. It has more value than the car I sold that was 11 years old. So as the age increases, the value decreases. Older cars are worth less. Because those are different, that would be a negative correlation. A student's height and their test scores. As a student gets older, does that impact their test score? Well, as they get older, the material tends to change. So it's not like we've got an older student who's sitting in one grade. So those two things tend to not influence each other. So we would typically say this has no correlation. And the height and age of a pine tree. As the age, now age would typically be considered the input. As the age increases, the height also increases. So this would be a positive correlation. And I usually do that with the plus and minuses. If they're the same, then it's positive, and if they're different, it's negative. Data is said to have strong correlation if the majority of the points fit tightly together with most of the data lying inside a long, narrow oval. So a long, narrow oval would be like this. That is a long, narrow oval. That is a strong correlation. It is also moving down to the right as x is increasing, y is decreasing, so it would be negative. Another thing that I do sometimes is grab a highlighter and I will highlight or shade all of the sections that don't have data. And sometimes that helps me see whether or not it's strong. If there's a lot of highlighter, that means that the data is really tightly grouped. The middle one looks like it's scattered everywhere, so that would be no correlation. And last, we have one that's sort of going up to the right. But if I try that highlighter trick, you'll notice that this one has a lot less highlighter on the sides than the first one. This one I would say is moderate to weak. According to our two choices here, we would say it is weak. And it is going up to the right. So as X is increasing, Y is also increasing. So that would be positive. Moderate is where you have something that's sort of in the middle. I might even say this one is moderate, but given that we only had two choices on the notes, the first one would be strong because of how tightly grouped, and the second one would be considered weak.